was looking at something on the Daily Kos website yesterday, or maybe it was the day before. I was not looking for this particular thing. It was something else. But this caught my eye, and it has been bugging me ever since. And I decided I wanted to say something about it at the end of the show on Friday. It is a simple thing, but it's the kind of graph that tends to upset the common wisdom. What it is the stock market, going back to 1993, smoothed out a lot. But this is it. The blue line stands for growth, stock market going up. The red line stands for shrinking, for downturns. It also just so happens that the blue line also stands for Democratic presidents in that red-blue way we've gotten used to in political reporting. Blue stands for stock market growth and for a Democratic administration. Red stands for stock market downturns and a Republican administration. And if you focus on just this part, you will see that regardless of how you personally are doing, this part of our nation is living large. Despite what you hear about the economy at home, the stock market is in tall cotton. And the reason the stock market is doing so well is that the companies whose stock makes up the stock market, those companies are doing very, very well. Very well. Very, very well. The government released new figures last week on just how very, very well companies are doing. In the last 3 months of 2010, American corporations were cranking out profits at a record rate. They have not grown like this since 1950. If they clipped along like this for a whole year, they'd make $1.68 trillion, trillion with a T, as in totally rich. Trillions, my Friday night friends, are large. They are very large. Trillions divide up into great big slices. I would like to congratulate my sort of bosses at GE, General Electric, which owns nearly half of this network. They cleared $14.2 billion last year. Goldman Sachs, which never wanted that bailout anyway, they recorded more than $8 billion in net earnings. GM, welcome back to life, thanks to help from the American taxpayers. GM made $4.7 billion. And Google, the new economy, with $18.9 billion in profit. But hey, what was wrong with the old economy? If you're an oil company like ExxonMobil, not much. Exxon made $149 billion. So the stock market is doing great. Corporations are doing great. And the bosses of corporations, they're also doing great. After the Great Recession, these guys rebuilt Fat City really fast, and now they are living in it. Check it out. Last year, CEO pay jumped 27%. What? Typo? No. Last year, CEO pay jumped 27%, reported in USA Today. In technical terms, that is an awful lot on top of an already god-awful lot. The paper's top dog was this guy, Philippe Dauman. I think that's how you say his last name. It's D-A-U-M-A-N. He's the chairman of Viacom. $84.5 million. Yeah, that guy's recession is over. Yours may or may not be, depending on whether or not you are average. The government reports that average worker pay grew just 2.1% last year, which is the technical way of saying almost nothing, flat, going nowhere. So the rich guys are getting way richer. Think about this. CEO pay up 27% in a year. You, my average friend, not getting way richer. Average worker pay flat. 27% for the CEOs, flat for average workers. I am not trying to start a class war here. I am just saying this is what's going on. The CEOs are doing way better. Average workers, not. Underlined. But today we got what passes for good news for the commoners. The government's new jobs report said unemployment fell a tick to 8.8%. The economy added 230,000 private sector jobs. Sounds like a lot, and it's better than nothing. But we did lose 8 million jobs in the Great Recession, and we have a lot of ground to make up. Ezra Klein, writing today at the Washington Post, said this, quote, "At this rate, getting back to the 5% unemployment rate we saw in early 2008 will take us until 2018. We can't wait that long. We are, in fact, in a recovery, as you can see in this graph from Calculated Risk. We are in a recovery. It's just an incredibly slow recovery after an incredibly frightening fall. And while all of this is happening, while the stock market's recovering and CEOs are making bank, it is regular people who work for a living, the ones who cash paychecks, who are being told it's time to sacrifice, right? Politicians at the state and federal level keep saying, we're broke, we're broke, we're broke. We have to have some shared sacrifice. But when they say shared sacrifice, what they mean is they mean cutting teacher pay by amounts that really matter. They mean laying off half the school district staff in Philadelphia while the state works to shovel a huge, new, bigger hole in the state's deficit in order to give hundreds of millions of dollars to corporations. They mean raising taxes on working class families and the elderly in Michigan. Raising taxes on working class people and the elderly in Michigan in order to finance hundreds of millions of dollars to give away to business. They mean cutting programs that help poor people heat their homes. That is an Obama administration proposal, by the way. They mean declaring a financial emergency, making the deficit way worse with a bunch of corporate giveaways, and then cutting money from programs for the disabled, like they're doing in Florida. This economic strategy is costing the nation a bundle. I mean, all we hear about is cuts, right? But it's one thing to talk about cutting spending. The thing that is being lost in translation is that this is not just cutting. This is a transfer of wealth that specifically might otherwise be able to close a budget deficit. And instead, it is being shoveled out the door to corporate interests and to the people who, frankly, are already doing great right now in the economy. Check this out. That national deficit Republicans keep warning us about, the serious moral threat they say it poses, that deficit would be cut in half if we let the Republican Bush-era tax cuts for the richest people in the country expire. The deficit would be cut in half if the Bush tax cuts were allowed to expire. Ezra Klein, again, posting this graph. The other big thing we could do to fix the nation's budget is to start making corporations pay their share. Senator Bernie Sanders, the master of populist righteous outrage, posted a list this week of what he calls the 10 worst corporate income tax avoiders. Number one on Senator Sanders' list, ExxonMobil, $19 billion in 2009 profits. What did they pay in taxes? Goose egg. They got $156 million in an IRS rebate. Number two for Mr. Sanders, Bank of America, $4.4 billion in profits in 2010. Paid nothing in taxes. They got a $1.9 billion tax refund. Number three, General Electric. Hi, boss. $26 billion in profits over the last 5 years. No taxes. $4.1 billion refund from the IRS, Senator Sanders says, and nothing due to Uncle Sam in 2010. When you pay your taxes, it always hurts, right? But you think, I'm doing my part. Imagine what part you could do if your income was $26 billion over 5 years, if you actually paid any taxes on it. Those are the haves, who are also now the get-mores. Who should pay for that and why? Have a good weekend.